Thanks for turning to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at an offering from Venture Enterprises from 2006, 1248 Sourcebook 1, Out of the Darkness. This was written by Martin Doherty, and as I said, was out in 2006, and it kind of wraps up the story of Traveler the New Era. Traveler the New Era was Game Designers Workshop's version of Traveler from 1993 till they went out of business in 96. Martin Doherty, 10 years later, gave us the answer to a lot of questions. So we're going to take a look at this excellent book and where you can get your hands on a copy affordably, and just kind of go through it and enjoy it today on page 121. Also, I just want to remind everybody, subscribers, please. Channel is growing, but it's slowed a little bit lately. I'm not sure why. So if there's anything you can do to help, please, if you wouldn't mind. Also, everybody who has subscribed, thank you. And Patreon, also, if you could take a look at that, I am offering rewards there now. I'm going to be putting up a tier level soon. So I haven't quite decided on what I'm going to do with that yet. That's more what's holding it up than anything else. But when I do, I'll make sure that I note it and I put a link below. So that's it for the commercial. Back to the important stuff. 1248 Sourcebook, Out of the Darkness, the follow-up to Traveler of the New Era. Today on page 121. Out of the Darkness. This was a really good book written by Martin Doherty, published in 2006 as part of Comstar Games and Avenger Enterprises. Hard to say. Comstar Games and Avenger Enterprises. The idea was that it would follow up what happened after the New Era. Traveler of the New Era ran from roughly 1202 with some recent history thrown in there, and it went through about 1210 thereabouts, maybe a little bit longer. I'm not positive on that last date, but certainly not much longer than that. I played Traveler of the New Era. I bought and read all the stuff as it came out. I really tried to embrace it. That's the era immediately after the Second Civil War, where civilization has basically collapsed, and we're pulling ourselves up out of the rubble and exploring the stars once again. So the Second Rebellion ends right around 1130 Imperial calendar year, and then the New Era picks up at 1202 with basically a new and burgeoning society that's going to take back the stars. It was interesting. It was meant to be kind of uplifting, I guess, and hopeful, but in my opinion, it came off kind of grim. Not sure if that was a conscious choice or not, but that's what I always felt. So here we have a nice looking map of charted space in 1248, and what this book does for us is it moves the story forward. So our story, Travel the New Era, when unfortunately Game Designers Workshop went out of business in 96, Travel of the New Era just kind of died on the vine. There was hope that maybe another publisher would pick it up or something else like that could happen. Mark Miller's Traveler came out right afterward, and those of us who were still buying Traveler at the time were hopeful that somebody would pick up the New Era. While I may not have always been a fan of the Rebellion and the virus, I did like the setting and I wanted to know what happened. Well, nobody picked it up until Avenger Enterprises, and they picked it up, and Martin Doherty wrote the story. So Martin is credited as the last best hope, Martin J. Doherty, with various Keepers of the Flame. And one quick side note, when I was on my interview with Martin not too long ago, when he and I appeared in Fantasy Grounds Academy back on January 14th, I asked Martin, is your 1248 stuff still canon? Because when this was written, it was canon. And he laughed, and he said he didn't know. He wasn't sure if it was still canon or not. It's not really anything he discussed with anybody, so he just didn't know. So I still take this as canon because, frankly, I haven't seen anything else released to oppose it. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the story of what happened. And to that end, I recommend it to you. This is one of 4 source books set in the 1248 timeline. So we got our nice little table of contents. We got some really nice history here. And then Martin tells about the book. It's his vision of what the New Era would have led to. And then we get an excellent look at the history of the Imperium, a unified history of charted space. If you're looking for in my opinion, one of the definitive treatments of the history of chartered space. This is your book. This takes us all the way through the earliest times, all the way ancient times, the First Imperium. Now, granted, it's a little brief in sections because it has to be, but it takes us into the Third Imperium, and then the collapse, the Civil War, and the collapse. And we get it by time breaks. So it's 1116 to 1130, and we find out what happens in that timeline. Then we get the Civil War, the desperation phase, which is in part of that little clump, but it's 1119 to 1121 as everybody's getting desperate. And then the situation becomes irretrievable. That's where Hard Times comes in, which is a great source book from Mega Traveler. And then the Dark Years, 1130 to 1195. This is after the collapse of interstellar space and before Traveler of the New Era begins. This is the first time we really get a look at what happened in the intervening years. So Martin did a nice job here. The Black Curtain. A lot of these things I'm going to mention as I go through this book, but I'm not necessarily going to dwell on a lot because I may do future videos on, for instance, the Black Curtain. The Black Curtain is a really interesting thing that came up, I want to say at the end of Mega Traveler, and certainly by the New Era it was there. And the Black Curtain is something that surrounds the Imperial core sector. And I don't want to go further than that because, like I say, I'm probably going to do a video on that soon. So this just gives us a very comprehensive look at everything that was going on in these times. What's up with the Solomani Confederation? Nice look at that. The League of Antares, the Vargir Splinters, just all kinds of good stuff. The fall of the 2000 worlds. And what happened with the Lords of Thunder. We get a nice look at it here. And actually, they're kind of pivotal for some of the story in here. Again, the Lords of Thunder is definitely something I'm going to take a look at. For anybody who's not familiar, the Lords of Thunder are a very militant group of Kukri over in the Gateway sector in that area, not precisely there, but in that area. And they want to eradicate all carnivores from known space. And to that end, they do all kinds of nasty stuff to make that happen. That was brought about by the Keith brothers in the final issue of Traveler's Digest, issue number 4. And if you have the opportunity, and that pops up on eBay fairly often, and you can get a price affordably. I passed on one not too long ago that would have gone for $35. It's a great read. It's about 104 pages, and it tells the story of the Lords of Thunder. I recommend it highly. It was published by Digest Games, so it's out of print and won't be in print anytime soon, unfortunately, but it's still available on the aftermarket. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. We get a nice look at what happened with the Steppe Lords. We get the Hive Federation, what they did during this, what the Aslan did. All this against the time that Virus is rampaging around the galaxy and vampire ships are crushing anybody that dares to get in their path. Virus, of course, was the end of Mega Traveler and gave us the New Era. Virus causes the collapse of civilization as these homicidal or suicidal viruses infect different computers. It's not truly a virus in the computer sense. It actually overwrites the hardware. But Virus will be its own video not terribly long from now. I've done a little bit on Virus already, but I just want to give a quick explanation of what Virus is. And a vampire ship is a ship controlled by Virus, completely run by the artificial intelligence that becomes Virus. And vampire ships make other vampire ships. That's why they're called that. One makes another. And then they go around the space lanes chewing up anybody who dares to be in their path. So then we get a look at the Zero Circa, the attempt by the Volani to reestablish their first Imperium. And then a lot of different other successor states. We get the early Reconstruction. We get the United World. We get the Dawn League. The Star Vikings. Star Vikings are not treated well by Martin in this. And you know, I kind of liked his interpretation. The Star Vikings were the main thrust. The Restoration Coalition Exploratory Service, RCES, became known as the Star Vikings. And they would go in, and if you had tech that they need, they would try to bargain for it. If they didn't, they'd go in and they'd do a smash and grab and they'd take it. Some moral ambiguity there from Traveler of the New Era from 30 years ago. And Martin kind of takes them to task for it in here. It's pretty good reading. And then we get the Usteki Trade Federation. And then the Rise of the Powers from 1206 to 1208. all leading to 1248. And 1248 is the beginning of our timeline because it's the time of the Fourth Imperium has already been getting founded prior to 1248, but in 1248 they finally elect their first emperor of the newly forged Fourth Imperium, and that starts our campaign world. Here in 1248, you get to go out and explore what remains in the galaxy, and you can play this era in the Golden Age kind of way, where you just stay in civilized space and you do regular traveler adventures, or you can do a lot of wilderness stuff that does involve rogue AIs and vampire ships and things like that. It's really a nice melting pot of everything you might want to play. In full disclosure, I have never run a game in 1248. Right now, I'm running a current Traveler campaign, and I just got good news from my players on our game on Tuesday that they're interested in starting up another Traveler campaign. Our friend Mike, who had been absent for the table for about 3 years due to various reasons, is back. And he's excited about playing Traveler, but he said correctly, hey, you're going to have to teach me. Mike has never played the 2-6 version of Traveler. He played plenty of D20 Traveler. And I said, no problem. And at that, everybody said, well, let's just start up a new campaign, and that way Mike can be in on the ground floor. I'm very excited about that. It's going to be Pirates of Drinnax. My guys are excited because if you follow my channel, you know that they went pirate in my last campaign, and we're going to go ahead and roll some elements of that into the Pirates of Drinnax. But the other part that I'm really excited about is they all agreed we're going to do a session 0 by way of teaching Mike the new version of the game and polishing up characters and things like that. So we are actually going to do a session 0. I'm still working on talking them into letting me record it, but I'm making inroads there too. I think they'll be okay with me recording the session itself, but no promises on that yet. I'm still working on that. But starting a brand new Traveler campaign is always exciting, especially when I get to start my second one within a year. Very exciting for me. I'm not dumping my other campaign. I'm simply going to be running 2 campaigns. That's not uncommon for our group, by the way. In D&D, when we play D&D steadily, it's not uncommon for me to be the game master, dungeon master of 2 or 3 campaigns at once. We switch out characters just to keep things fresh. And on that note, too, because of Mike's return, we've decided we're going to start a brand new AD&D first level adventure campaign, and I may see if we can record some of the early go of that. So hopeful. I got to talk my players into it still, but I am hopeful that both those things will happen. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Now we're getting up to the Curtain War. Again, the Black Curtain opens. That has to do with the Imperial Core. We have a Regency Civil War. The Regency goes to Civil War. And then we have the Calm in 1212. And continuing on, we have more wars between 1213 and 1218. Again, I'm not going to dwell on a lot of this stuff simply because I want you to take a look at this book, but I don't want to give up all the stuff out of it because I have hopes to do quite a few videos just based out of this book and Travel of the New Era. So the founding years, 1219 to 1221. This is when they decide that it is time to start seriously talking about a Fourth Imperium. They don't have in mind who's going to be their emperor yet. So in 1221, they take a turn toward becoming the Fourth Imperium. And then in 1248, they crown their emperor. And then we get the expansion period, 1222 to 1228. There even is the island campaigns. There's all kinds of stuff in here. If you play in the Spinward Marches now or have ever played in the Spinward Marches, the islands, or anything like that, there's a bunch of stuff in this book for you. And coming through Spinward Breakup and Avery's Return. Whoops. And then the last rally, 1243 to 1246. And now we get into a time of peace. The year of Lucan the Great in 1247. Yes, Lucan, the guy who shattered the Imperium. Well, one of the guys that shattered the Imperium. And he's back. And again, you got to read the book. I'm not going to give that up yet either. And then we go to the new era of 1248. So that completes our history of the book. It's the first 78 pages of a 168-page book. Then we get Charted Space in the New Era in Chapter 2. And this tells us what all the various races are doing in the new era. And this is a nice overview of what you have in front of you. And again, This is system agnostic. You can use this at any version of Traveller that you're playing. We get a little look at Ithclur Marines in here. I love the Ithclur. And then we have the Wilds. So as I said, you can be playing in a Golden Age type campaign, or you can be in a Frontier type campaign. Major and minor powers of the new era, and it begins with the Fourth Imperium. And then we get the new Zero Circa. The Freedom League. All kinds of stuff in this book. I read this book when I got it in 2006. I bought it off DriveThruRPG. And then I read it again about a year ago. And then I read it again in preparation for this video. This is one of my favorite books to just sit down and read. Martin is a really good writer. If you've read his stuff, I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me. His stuff flows very nicely. I've always enjoyed his writing, and this is one of his best works, in my opinion. So there we go with the Kree Survivor States, the Julian Protectorate, Sons of Craig. Lots of good stuff in here. Vampires and Rogue Sims. Rogue symbiotic creatures, the vampires. And then we get Chapter 3, Referees Information. And this is where a lot of the meat of the book is. The early part is the history, which is absolutely very good reading. But for the referees part, we find out about virus. What's going on with virus? We find out about common viral strains and all the different types there are, and how virus works. It is not a computer virus. Everybody laughed about the computer, just getting a virus and taking over. No, this thing actually rewrites the hardware inside. All the chips get rewritten by this. And I'll explain that when I go into the virus one. The Empress Wave. If you were like me in the new era, you finally get some answers to what the heck the Empress Wave was in this book. And I loved reading this in 2006. Finally closed the door on a lot of what the questions were. I'm not going to stay on this because I am going to be doing an Empress Wave video in the very near future. I love the Empress Wave. I'm doing my own slight interpretation of the Empress Wave, but it's pretty cool. The Droin and the Ancient and the Related Matters, Dead Space Phenomenon and Ghost Fleet, and then going forward in the timeline. And then, again, blowing through this referees section because I want to keep some of this stuff quiet for the moment. By the way, this book's been around for 17 years. You can certainly get a copy for yourself, and I'll show you at the end of the video where you can get it. Generating universal world profiles for worlds in the new era. Yep, you can go ahead and whip up your own profile set in the 1248 universe. And if you want Traveller Map has a time setting for 1248. You can go ahead and use Traveller Map for 1248 just like you do for any other time in Traveller. I love the Traveller Map. And then we got a sample area to play in, the county of Uxie, we'll call it Uxie. And we get a nice look at the well-developed area of space for you to start your campaign in. All the worlds that are in there, adventuring in the county, and so forth. We get some nice world views, nice world maps. Always like those. And then the back of the book, more about Comstar Media, and we're out. All in all, an outstanding book that I recommend completely. This is a very fun read, especially for those of us who went through the new era. And I ran the new era. I ran that rule set. I ran campaigns in that for a couple of years. I didn't stop the new era when Game Designers Workshop stopped. I ran that for a year or two afterward. And that was when I was starting to run my Mark Miller's Traveller campaign as well. I've run almost every edition of Traveller at some point or another, even if only briefly. Probably one of the briefest out of there would be Mark Miller's Traveller. I didn't stay in that a real long time. The Milieu Zero didn't catch me, and frankly, the rules really didn't do anything for me. But for the most part, I enjoyed the stuff that came out of Traveller: The New Era. I may not have liked where they took the universe, but I certainly enjoyed a lot of the products that were brought out of the universe, and I liked the storyline. And it was very satisfying to get an ending here, telling us what the heck happened. And now I'm going to show you where you can get this guy. These books, all four of them, are available as part of the Travel of the New Era Extended New Era Canon. I got it on CD-ROM. Anybody who's followed my channel for a while knows I have a notorious history with losing thumb drives. So I do buy CD-ROM. I realize this is an outdated technology. Oh well. In addition to getting a bunch of adventures written for the new era, you get the four books, Out of the Darkness, Bearers of the Flame, the Spinward States, and the Freedom League, all as part of the 1248 campaign. And you get all the novels that are set in Travel of the New Era, as well as Challenge Magazine for the New Era articles. So this is a great CD set. I think they're $35 through the Far Future Enterprises website. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to this so you can get it. I recommend these books very much. These are all good. The Death of Wisdom, Dream of Chaos, and Backwards Mask are also interesting reads. And I like the adventures here too. So, I mean, this is a winner disc as far as I'm concerned. And I recommend it completely. I'll put a link below as to where you get your hands on this guy. So that's all I've got to say today on page 121. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. Like the video if you liked it. And I'll see you next time.